An ancient struggle between two Cybertronian races, the heroic Autobots and the evil Decepticons, comes to Earth, with a clue to the ultimate power held by a teenager. This is my review of Transformers. When I saw Transformers for the first time, it was back in 2007, I believe, which is when the movie came out. And back then, when I saw it, I thought that it was a good movie. And when I rewatched it before I saw the fourth Transformers movie, I still think it's a good movie, in my opinion. The good points. The best thing that came out of this movie is the fact that we got to see Transformers for the first time in a live-action movie. And before this, there were only Transformers in like several different animated series and in a animated movie based off of one of those animated series. But yeah, it was really cool to see Transformers for the first time, like transforming from their vehicle form into their robot form. And this goes into my next good point, which is the fact that the visual effects are top-notch, and I think they still hold up to today's standards. Because when one of the Autobots or when one of the Decepticons transform from their vehicle to robot form, you can see all the little details when they're transforming, and it's really cool looking. And I thought that the visual effects brought a little bit more realism to the fights between the Autobots and the Decepticons, or the Decepticons and the humans. And speaking of the fighting, I think that the next best thing about Transformers is the sound design, because I thought that the sound design for the firefights or the fighting between the Autobots and the Decepticons was, like, it sounded very realistic. And not only that, but I thought that the Autobots and the Decepticons had their own type of, like, sound to them, because you know how when, like, a laser gun goes off, it makes this distinct laser gun sound, but when the Autobots or the Decepticons are fighting their weapons, they have different types of weapons, so each of them has their own sound to them, and it's unique. And since we're talking about the firefights and the fight scenes, I'll say that the next good thing about this movie is some of the action scenes. And to be honest, I'll give credit to Michael Bay's directing in some of the action scenes. Because even though some of his directing wasn't that good in the movie, which I'll get to later, I thought that some of his best stuff was when he was directing the action scenes in the movie. And the final good thing I'll say about Transformers is that the story isn't really that generic. Like, it was almost at that generic level, but it sort of had its own taste or flavor to it, in my opinion, and therefore I thought that was a good thing. And I thought that the movie had some good comedy moments too, because usually in Michael Bay movies I think that the comedy is like either really terrible or mediocre, but in this movie I thought that there were some like comedic moments that were good. The bad points. Like I said a moment ago, I think that some Michael Bay movies have either terrible or mediocre humor, and even though I thought that some moments in the movie had some good or okay comedic moments, I thought that the rest of the comedy in this movie was just terrible. And I think the reason that Michael Bay's humor or comedy is terrible or mediocre in his films is because of the fact that it's edited weirdly, directed weirdly, written a little bit weirdly as well. And that was the case with some of the comedic moments in this movie. And speaking of the directing, writing, and editing, I thought that these three aspects had its bad moments in this movie. Like I said with Michael Bay's directing, his directing with comedic moments can be bad sometimes, and I thought that his directing in some of the action scenes was a little bit bad. Even though I said in the good points that his directing and the action scenes were good, I thought there were some moments where I was like, I don't know why he directed that action scene that way. And the way he wants his shots set up is a little bit weird as well, because it's a weird angle and you wouldn't think that that angle would be needed for that scene. With the writing, like I said, I thought that some of the comedic writing was bad, and I thought that some of the story elements with the writing were bad as well because of the coincidences like throughout the movie. And by coincidences I mean like, oh, like this character was in this scene because of an earlier action before, and they really needed him in this scene, and the only way they got him in that scene was because of an action that took place earlier in the scene. Or another thing was that, oh, like, this character was, like, with the main character at this moment just be thrusted into the rest of the story that's going to happen later on. And with the editing, I thought that the editors did sort of a bad job with scene transitions or with continuity, because there'd be like one moment and that would be like, that's a little bit strange with transitioning and with continuity. And I'll give an example of that, and this isn't going to spoil anything really, but so there's this group of soldiers in the desert, and they get to this like radio tower or whatever, and one of the transformers is underground, and it knocks down the radio tower and it falls, and all the soldiers are like, whoa, 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 and like in the next shot, which is a really weird transition, it's like the same group of soldiers, but these two soldiers are like in front of the tower that just fell, and one of them, I guess, like didn't notice it, and he's like, ugh, and turns around and he says, what the heck was that? And then the other soldier like speaks in Spanish, and then the other soldier's like, English, dude, English, and it's like a really weird comedic moment to put that in. And then in the next part of the scene is when it's as if like the soldiers never knew that happened, because they're like all cool and calm. Like if a tower fell, I'd be like, whoa, what the heck happened? But no, it was just like in the next part of the scene, it was just them like looking around and everything, like everything's fine. And the final bad point I'll say about Transformers is that some of the action scenes are a little bit overpacked with action. And this is mainly because of Michael Bay, because I think everyone knows that Michael Bay has like a lot of action in his movies. And usually he likes to do over-the-top action, and he sort of limited the over-the-top action in this movie, which was a little bit strange. But when there was over-the-top action, it was like, wow, I don't know why we need this much action like in this particular scene. So my rating for the first Transformers movie is a 3 out of 4 stars. I think that out of the 4 Transformers movie, this is the best Transformers movie, because we got to see the Transformers for the first time on a big screen in a live-action movie. And they looked really good with their visual effects and everything, and I thought it was a good movie overall. If you're a fan of Michael Bay movies, I think you'll enjoy the movie. If you're a fan of action movies, I think you'll like it at least. And if you're just a regular moviegoer or movie fan, then I think you should only watch it if you're bored out of your mind or have nothing else better to do. Hope you liked this review, guys, and other than that, that's it.